Hey everyone, Link G here. I'm here at Cloak and Dagger today in Ormond Beach with my friend Mike.
Hey, what's up?
And we're gonna teach you how to play HeroClix today. So Mike, what's HeroClix?
HeroClix is a tabletop game where you build teams based on heroes and villains from Marvel and DC. Each character has a point value. You build teams based on a certain point value that you determine if your opponent or the format is picked by a venue.
So you basically make a team depending on the point value and you gotta beat your opponent.
Yes. And the game's decided usually by D6 rolls. The game's surprisingly easy to learn, but very difficult to master with rules and other things like that. Sometimes you need a PhD in English to learn how to play. Link used to play at our store back when he had
Money.
Yeah. Yeah. So he definitely knows how the game is has a hurdle. But it's a really fun game, and once you get into it, especially if you love the characters, the pieces and stuff like that, it's real fun to play. One of the big things to take away from it is that it's not only Marvel and DC. They've been doing Ninja Turtles, Star Trek, they've done Pacific Rim, Halo,
Lord of the Rings, Street
Fighter. They still need to go back to do that one, to do Marvel vs. Capcom. They do a whole bunch of stuff, and there's more stuff to come every year. They're getting ready to do a Secret Wars based on the newer Hickman run of Secret Wars for more comic book buffs out there. So we may be getting a God Doom. Pretty cool piece, I hope. And they just got done with Batman the Animated Series. As you can see, we got a little Superman, Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, Mr. Freeze, and Scarecrow, just to show you how some of these pieces work.
Okay, so are these the only size of pieces we have?
No, actually, there's also much larger ones. This is considered a colossal. As you can see, they are much bigger, and they have different points and values because of how big they are. And a lot of them have something called Colossal Retaliation, which makes them a support piece that retaliates when a character gets attacked on the board. As you can see, there's tons of them to be said. And this is just a sampling that we just grabbed just to show you.
And speaking of showing you, here is how they normally come. This is the regular booster with regular size figures. There's a bigger box with the Colossals. And they also come in starter sets.
That one comes with a two-sided map, 6 pieces, all built to be made for 300-point teams, and a rule book. It's something called Powers and Abilities card, which has the cheat sheet for the powers on the dials to help you learn what they are color-coded wise.
And speaking of abilities, each character come with a card, right?
Yes, really cool. They just started doing this, where all the powers and abilities are on the front, and then you can see on the back, you can see their actual dial. We can actually see the stats and everything like that. What's really interesting about this is that in competitive play, that allows you to cheat sheet to look at what your character could do without your opponent knowing. So you can know, okay, well, I could click to have this ability to use for this later, and so on and so on if I need to push or do other things like that. They also have the keywords on the cards where you can see what teams they are, what affiliations they have, and then whatever have you, the points, the set numbers, stuff like that.
So can you just make a team with any hero, or you
Yes.
have to
you're
use
given,
a keyword?
You're given benefits for using pieces of like the same affiliation. Like if I ran a whole Justice League team, I would gain a bonus to my rolls at the beginning of the game to choose a map. So I choose where I fight. And then I also get things called theme team probs, which we'll go over later. But yeah, you can just build whatever you want as long as the character doesn't actually say cannot be used with blank.
So let's talk a little bit about abilities. What are the most common abilities that the
Most common
have?
abilities are usually the more popular ones you'll see a lot of people play, which is Prob, Perplex, and Outwit, which Perplex increases or decreases any value on the dial, so range, attack, movement, defense, and damage. There's Outwit, which actually cancels a power. And in probability, it allows you to re-roll your D6 rolls. Usually your opponent's rolls on his turns and your rolls on your turn. You get to, as long as you're in line of sight and range, you get to make that character re-roll the dice for a more favorable outcome for you. So those are probably the 3 best powers in the game. But then there's other powers that are really good, like hypersonic speed, which the Flash and Superman would have. They're able to move as far as they can to make an attack, and then finish after that moving, which is a very unique power in the game. There's charge and running shot. Charge, you move up and you just punch somebody in the face like the Hulk. A running shot is like, Black Widow running across the room just shooting, where you just move and then shoot. There's telekinesis, where you move something across the room or throw debris at somebody. There's smoke cloud, which Batman and other people would use, where they just throw down a bunch of obscuring smoke. And then for defense powers, there's abilities to evade or dodge attacks. For example, Super Senses allows you to evade on a D6 roll. On a 5 or 6, the attack doesn't hit you at all. And then there's Toughness, which is -1 to damage. Invulnerability, which is -2. Impervious, which is -2 with a D6 roll. A 5 or 6, you cancel out the damage. Now there's Invincible, which is a brand new power they came out with not too long ago, which you take a maximum of 3 damage and you take away 2. So it allows you, like if somebody hits you for 5, they're only hitting you for 3. If they hit you for 2, they're not doing any damage to you.
What about the movement of the pieces?
On each dial, you kind of see how there's 4 different symbols, 5 actually, 5 different symbols. There's the foot symbol, that means that's your movement stat, and you can kind of see how there's a number right next to it. That's how many squares you can move.
There are different kinds of movements, right?
Yes, there's flying, swimming, normal movement. Flying characters can carry characters that don't have flight. A carried character isn't considered placed, it's considered to be carried. So when they get dropped off, let's say Scarecrow's getting picked up by Superman here. Superman picks him up. He takes his -1. So we'll stop right there. I place Scarecrow in any square adjacent to Superman. And then Scarecrow cannot make an action this turn. He can make free actions, like Outwit, Perplex, or Probability. But he can't...
Which will say on the card.
Yeah. But he can't move anymore at all until your next turn.
Okay.
It allows you to have a fresh character to be able to do whatever he wants the next turn, while this character takes the action to do so.
What happens when they make an action, like moving or attacking?
Moving or attacking, they get an action token. Usually, it's either a dice, a token, what have you. Usually people use poker chip type tokens to be able to show how many actions they have and not obscure the board. Now, a character can have more than 2 actions on him. At that point, if he has 2 actions on him, he has to clear, which is they just don't do anything that turn. It's kind of like cooling down, And if a character doesn't have an ability that stops him from taking pushing damage, when he receives a second action after actions resolve, he will take a click of damage, just to show that he's exerting himself. Attacking is really cool in this game. Each character has an attack stat, which is the 5th symbol right here on Superman. That means the accuracy of their attack. And what you do is you compare that to the defense symbol on the character you're attacking. And sometimes the characters have an ability called like close combat reflexes, anti-shield deflection, what have you, that allows them to plus or minus depending on what type of attack you're doing. Let's say Superman's trying to punch Scarecrow. No biggie. You take your 2d6s and you roll, and you compare the 2d6 rolls to see what happens. Now, sadly, I rolled a 3. That's 1 away from a critical miss, which is 2-1, Snake Eyes. So sadly, with Superman's 10 attack and Scarecrow's 17 defense, doesn't hit. And then Superman will get his action after that.
You said 1 and 1 is a critical miss. What does that mean?
A critical miss is an automatic failure of the attack, and you basically shoot yourself in the foot. You take 1 damage unavoidable. Unavoidable, it means that no matter what happens, you're going to take damage. But then on the opposite side, you have a critical hit, which is 2 6s. That means it's a critical hit. That means it's guaranteed to hit. It ignores evades. You deal +1 to your damage, and it also, because it's 2 doubles, you get to generate something called knockback, which means that a character would then get struck and move the amount of damage that he took back. So Superman attacks it from this angle, so he would move 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. He would go here, but he hit a wall. When he has to stop abruptly, one being knocked back, he'll take damage from that.
So it's extra damage for hitting the wall.
Yeah, so he takes 1 more, and that would KO him. A character only has so many clicks until he's dead, usually determined by the point value. So then that character gets off the board. Now, let's say Superman did hit. Let's try that again real quickly. Let's just say...
Yeah, keep trying.
We'll keep trying, yeah. Okay, that hits. So I rolled a 6 and a 1. Really liking the ones today, apparently. So that's 17 attack he's rolling against his 17. It meets the defense value. If you meet or beat the defense value, you hit. So when Superman hits him, how you calculate damage is you look at the little starburst here. 4 damage. So that means Scarecrow, sadly, he's going to take 4 damage from Superman. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Damage is determined by the click moving. So you kind of see how you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And it shows now his stats are completely different. The colors and powers change completely. And now he's a totally different character because he took damage. Usually characters taking damage either get stronger or weaker. In the Hulk's case, he gets stronger because he gets angrier the more he gets hit. But other characters tend to get a little weaker.
So the colors on the dials match the abilities on the card.
Yes. So let's just say for a minute, Superman took 4 damage for some reason. Either, Darkseid or Hulk took a punch at him. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can see he has blue on his dial for movement, so that means he has plasticity now. He now has black on his attack, which means he has steel energy. His defense now has toughness, and now he has battle fury. So you can see all these are represented on the card, just in the same order that they would show up on the card. So it's really easy to see how the character's stats change. Depending on the point value, you can only move a certain amount of pieces a turn. So, for example, let's say we're both playing a 300-point game against each other. I can only move Batman, Superman, and Mr. Freeze up. From back here, I can only move them up to here. They each get an action token, symbolizing that they took an action by moving. And then that's it. Even if I could do other things, even if I had more characters to move, I would not be able to do anything else because I moved those characters and I only have 3 actions.
So basically, the number of actions you get in a turn depends on the point value.
By 100, yes. Now sometimes
so each 100, it's 1 action.
Yes. Sometimes sometimes some places will do a venue of like 200 points. Can't play a character over 25 points. You get 5 action totals. Just to meet that demand. Usually just a scenario or something like that. So that's what you look at when you talk about point values and stuff like that. That's why point values are important. Let's go over the map a little bit just to kind of get an idea of what we're discussing here. So as you can see here, on both ends of the map, there's a purple box. That is the starting area. Each team decides which side they're going to go on at the beginning of the game by a dice roll. The winning team decides the map. The losing team decides which side they're going to play. So let's say I pick this map. Which side do you want to play?
I'll start on this side.
Okay, so at least he'll start here. He's gonna put his forces all over here. Just having a little powwow with his guys here. Then I put my guys over here. It's a little action. This is an indoor map. There is a difference between outdoor and indoor maps. Outdoor maps, characters that can fly or ignore blocking terrain could easily go over walls and other things like that. Just fly right over. But indoor, there's a ceiling, so it's only as big and high as the level of it. So we're looking at this right here. This is indoor. This is a museum. This is actually one of the newer maps, which is really cool because it introduces a new type of terrain called obscuring. And you can see here how these white lines on this. This is just like hindering. Hindering terrain, when a character normally enters hindering terrain, they have to stop immediately. But they get +1 to their defense on a range attack of a character, and if they have the ability called stealth, they're able to not be targeted by characters with range attacks. So there's a lot of benefits for that. But obscuring is really interesting. It works just like hindering, except for the stopping.
So they can go through.
They can go through it, it's just shadows, so they just go whoop, right in. You also have to look at blocking terrain. Now you can see how there's a brown square right here. That is unmovable terrain. Characters cannot go on top of it. Characters cannot go through it. What characters can do, they can use that to their advantage because line of fire cannot go through it. Now there are some characters that ignore blocking terrain and such for movement or shooting, but that's within a limited reason on that. The orange one, that's a special terrain marker. For each map usually has a rule to it. This one, it's a heist. So somebody steals the object, brings it back, comes back, steals it, brings it back. And you can see how the rules here with the orange. That basically describes what it is. And they had introduced a new thing called bonus advantages. And you can pay the extra points to have this map be that scenario type game. Walls. You see here how the solid black line is? That is a wall. Just like blocking terrain, it stops line of fire between characters. When a character shoots another character, they can't see them past that. But a character with a printed 3 or higher or super strength can use a power action to break a wall open. So just like the Hulk just punched through the wall,
And
Superman.
then the wall is open to the end of the game.
Yep, and it creates 2 hindering terrain from the entry point of the wall being broken. Now, on the other side, yep, you can see we have the docks. This is outside terrain. So like I said, you can fly over stuff, you can see characters better and stuff like that. With this, you can see how the blue here, this is water. Earlier when we were talking about characters that move through water with the dolphin symbol, they don't take any negatives for being in the water. And while you're in the water, just like hindering, you reduce your movement by half of whatever is printed on your dial.
Even if you're flying.
Well, no. Flyers ignore all terrain. The water also... just like hindering, stops characters when they enter it if they don't have the aquatic or flying symbol. Sometimes there's an advantage to being in the water depending on your character. Most Aquamans have an ability that allowed them to not be shot while they're in the water, or they gain bonuses for being in water. You can see how there's ladders all over the place on this map, and how there's a red line. That is elevated terrain. It's just a rooftop or a platform or something that's above everybody else. A character occupying elevated terrain can see other elevated terrain that they occupy.
Like
so yeah, so you see how there's a 1 and 2 here. The 1 means that's the ground floor. 2 means it's next elevation up. Superman and Scarecrow can technically see each other from here. Elevated terrain is really a powerful place to be in a game because it allows a character with any kind of range game.
Say Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, it allows him to have the advantage to be able to shoot at characters while he's unelevated without them being able to hit him back. Characters like Terry here, Batman Beyond, can still shoot at Mr. Freeze, but Mr. Freeze can easily just retreat back, and Terry now can't see him because he's not occupying the rim of elevated. So it's like being you see somebody on a roof and they just take a few steps back. You can't see them anymore. There can be multiple tiers of elevated on a map. I think we even went up to from 1 to 4 once. Colossals and Giants are really interesting because Giants are size +1, Colossals are +2. They gain something called Giant Size. When a character is Giant Size, they gain something called Giant Reach. Normally, in a close combat situation, for a Hulk to hit Terry, he would have to be base to him, right? With a close combat attack. But if Terry's right here, Terry couldn't hit the Hulk. But the Hulk here can, because he has a giant reach. So that allows him to attack a character from like 1 or more squares away, depending on the character. But right here, the Hulk, like I said, the Hulk could hit Terry from here, just from the fact that he has that symbol, the giant fist pounding on the ground. He can definitely hit Batman from here. The other thing that's really cool about Colossals is that they technically occupy the highest elevation of terrain at all times. So that means the Hulk can see Terry from here, or from here. So it's always really cool whenever you use Colossals and they have like support abilities like Perplex, Outwit, Prob, and you can just go like.
Yeah, let's talk about line of sight.
Yes, something we did forget to talk about earlier. Line of sight means that a character could draw their base to each other from the middle of their square they're occupying to the middle of the square that character's occupying. If that it's unhindered in any way, shape, or form, they can make a ranged attack. Some characters ignore other characters for line of fire and other such things. They ignore hindering terrain or elevated terrain, stuff like that. It'll be on their card under approved movement underneath the character's portrait now. Because they just updated these cards. So you see Terry has it where he ignores hindering, and he can make ranged attacks close on the upside. That's the improved targeting, hindering. That's what that means. So plus hindering a movement, and then what he ignores. And you can see how it's the same green as the hindering marker. Let's say for a minute we get a little fancy with this, and say Terry's here, and Mr. Freeze is here. Now, Mr. Freeze wouldn't be able to hit Terry from there because he has the Batman team ability, which allows him to give him stealth. So Batman, during his opponent's turns, can't be targeted because that's what stealth says. So Mr. Freeze, just like in Arkham City, how he's just wandering around looking for Batman, oblivious to where Batman is. But Batman, on his turn, he basically jumps out of the shadows for his action, is able to make an attack, so he's vulnerable to probability or other effects that a character would need to draw a line of fire to. Now, if Terry didn't have stealth, he would get +1 to his defense, and Mr. Freeze would have more difficult time attacking him because of that.
Team abilities are different for every character.
Yes, depending on what they have. The Batman enemy allows a character of lower points next to a higher point character to have outwit. The Superman team ability allows them to see through hindering. There's other team abilities, there's tons of them.
I know the X-Men one, you can heal each other, because I normally play X-Men.
Yeah, they have wild cards, which allows you to copy other team abilities. There's Mystics, which basically you deal damage back to the opponent that dealt damage to you. Whenever you're talking about line of fire also, characters block line of fire, even friendly characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you just gotta remember how placement is very important in
So,
this game.
for example, Mr. Freeze can't shoot Batman here because Scarecrow's in the front.
Yep. As long as you can draw a line from one middle square to another evenly, you could definitely shoot each other.
And now you can only target one character?
It depends on the character. Batman here has 2 Thunderbolts on his range, so that means he can attack two different characters. And what's really cool about that is when you make your attack known and you say I'm targeting both of these guys, you don't determine where damage is going until after the attack roll is made. So let's say for a minute I'm going to target both these guys, and I'm going to try to hit them. So I rolled a 9. That definitely hits either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could choose to deal 1 and 2 or 2 and 1, however I see fit, all into 1 by doing that attack.
And then the number beside the Thunderbolts?
Yes, that means how far away you can shoot. So Batman has 6 range. So that means from where he's sitting, he can shoot from here to either one of these guys.
Because he has 6 ranges.
Yep.
So 6 squares.
Yep. It, like we said before, line of fire is drawing from middle of the square to the middle of the square. The only thing right here is you kind of see that may go into hindering. So to target Scarecrow, he would gain a +1 to his defense in that instance.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Freeze wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always good to know.
But if it's like here, he can target any.
Both of them, no problem. If he's right here, you would get -1 because they shoot through boxes. A lot of fire is the most tricky part about this game, because a lot of times people argue about it and discuss placement and stuff like that. And that's the game for you though. They based this game on old Mage Knight Mech Warrior game, and that's where they got the idea for Clicks. That's why they call it HeroClix. I do believe we went over all the basics of HeroClix. If I missed anything, I apologize to everybody.
So that was HeroClix for you, a basic introduction video, and we're gonna have a more in-depth video in the future. If you guys live in Florida, come check Cloak and Dagger Comics in Norman Beach. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon.
Have a good day, guys.